In the desolate countryside of West Virginia, hidden behind a thick canopy of skeletal trees, stood the ruins of Black Hollow Asylum. The abandoned mental hospital had been left to rot for decades, its history shrouded in death and despair. Few dared to venture near, for the legend spoke of something unspeakably malevolent lurking within its crumbling walls. Black Hollow Asylum was once home to the most disturbed minds society had to offer, run by the notorious doctor, Reginald Graves. It was a place where darkness thrived. Patients were subjected to horrific experiments. Electroshock therapy taken to extremes, hydrotherapy meant to drown rather than heal, and surgeries performed with no anesthesia. The screams of the tormented souls echoed through the halls night after night, but no one came to their rescue. One fateful winter night in 1952, an infernal blaze engulfed the asylum. The fire spread with unnatural speed, as if it had a sinister will of its own. The staff and most of the patients perished, their charred remains discovered days later, but some bodies were never found. Among them was Dr. Graves himself. The asylum remained untouched for years, avoided by locals who whispered of the horrors trapped within. Those who strayed too close spoke of chilling screams carried by the wind, ghostly figures darting through shattered windows, and the feeling of unseen eyes watching from the darkness. Then came the night of October 31st, 1987. A group of thrill-seeking teenagers, Mark, Jenny, Tom and Rachel, dared to explore the asylum, laughing off the stories as mere folklore. Armed with flashlights and an old camcorder, they stepped inside the decaying structure. The air was thick with the scent of mildew and something far worse, something rotten. As they moved deeper, the temperature dropped drastically. Their breath became visible, their skin covered in goosebumps. Corridors stretched unnaturally, the walls seeming to pulse as if the asylum itself were alive. Then the whispers began. At first, they were barely perceptible, like the rustling of dry leaves. But soon they grew louder, agonized voices crying out for help, pleading for release. The group's laughter faded, replaced by nervous glances. Jenny clutched Mark's arm, her heart pounding. "Let's get out of here," Rachel whispered, her voice trembling. But it was too late. A blood-curdling shriek echoed through the asylum, shaking the very foundation. The flashlight beams flickered and died. Darkness swallowed them whole. Panic set in as Tom scrambled to turn the camcorder's night vision on. The screen lit up, revealing what their eyes could not. A tall, gaunt figure loomed in the corridor ahead. Its face was a mask of twisted rage, blackened, hollow sockets where eyes should have been. Its mouth stretched into an unnatural, gaping grin. A tattered doctor's coat clung to its skeletal frame, and in its clawed hand, it clutched a rusted scalpel. Dr. Graves had returned. The entity moved with inhuman speed. One moment, it was at the end of the hallway. The next, it was upon them. Jenny screamed as unseen hands wrenched her into the darkness. Mark reached for her, but she was gone. The walls groaned, doors slammed shut on their own. Tom and Rachel ran, but every corridor led them back to the same room, the asylum's operating theatre. Rusted tables stood in the center, straps still fastened, stained with the blood of the past. Then the lights flickered on. In the harsh, sterile glow, they saw Jenny lying on the table. Her eyes were wide open but lifeless. Her throat had been slit from ear to ear, her blood pooling beneath her. Tom gagged, horror freezing him in place, and then she sat up, her lips curled into that same monstrous grin. "You shouldn't have come here," she whispered in a voice that was no longer her own. The camera cut to black. Authorities found the camcorder weeks later, abandoned in the woods near Black Hollow Asylum. The footage was too disturbing to be released to the public. Of the 4 teenagers, only Mark was found, wandering miles away in a catatonic state, his hair turned completely white. He never spoke again. The asylum remains standing to this day, a place forsaken by time, haunted by the sins of the past. No one dares enter, because the doctor is still there, and he is waiting. In the years that followed, More brave souls attempted to explore the asylum. None returned. Some say they can hear their voices joining the tortured wails on stormy nights. Others claim to have seen figures watching from the windows, their eyes glowing with unnatural fire. In 2022, a paranormal research team entered Black Hollow Asylum, armed with the latest ghost hunting technology.